let's talk about particulate pollution, just so we're all. If I took a load of coal and I dumped it out of a dump truck onto the ground, there'd be all this dust.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about when you say particulate stuff kind of floating around the air?
It used to be just referred to as soot, but it's more than that.
Yeah, all right.
It's the stuff.
But you can inhale that.
Absolutely.
The Concerned Citizens group had a video where they went out to Granite City. It's that stuff that's on the siding and things like that. If you've seen that, that deal.
Those particles are so tiny they get lodged in your airways, and normally we would cough those up, the bigger particles up, but those are so small that they get stuck there. Which,
again, a normal healthy person, you may not even notice any restriction as far as your breathing is concerned. If you're having trouble breathing to begin with, that's a whole different deal.
Absolutely.
Craig. Yeah, absolutely. Also, too, I wanted to throw in this fact: the average in Crystal City, over 19% of the residents have a disability. That's by the census data, and so that really, considering that with the mean age of the population, exacerbates this problem. I mean, you couldn't, in my opinion, find a worse population to maybe expose this to if it ever comes to fruition.
Well, and that number actually more than doubles to 44% for people over the age of 65.
Is that right?
So that's almost half of our elderly people who have some sort of a disability.
But you don't know, like, of those disabilities, and we keep saying Crystal City. Mm-hmm. I mean, particulate matter doesn't stop at a line, in the sand. But just sticking with Crystal City, we're not sure how many of those people suffer from lung ailments.
No, but I think everyone knows somebody that has either, has cardiovascular problems or, even just asthma is, so prevalent, especially in our children. And as far as the particulate pollution goes, according to the American Lung Association, there are just in children alone, there are increased hospitalizations, more cases of asthma, more ER visits for asthma attacks, and decreased lung function altogether.
Asthma's on the rise, just medically across the board. Across the United States.
Especially as close to the schools as this would be, I think is really scary, especially for parents that have kids that would go there.
So again, you're coming out against this proposed smelter for obvious reasons, which I think you've laid out very clearly here today. What's the next step, Craig? What do you need to do? I mean, obviously coming on the radio is one thing, but I guess as the government agencies make forms available, you have to be represented.
Well, and that's the key to it. I think that our folks, people with disabilities that utilize our services who reside in Crystal City and Festus too. I mean, I live in Festus, so I can't interject my personal opinion here, but I think those folks need to be in these hearings, and we, as we've done with voters' guides and such, which I've come on the radio with before, we do a pretty good job of making sure our folks are educated and they know the issues, and they're not just going to go to a hearing and yell and scream. They're going to come with the facts in hand, and that's what Aaron's job is dig up all the research so that we know exactly what we're getting into, and they do too, and to throw it out there in a non-biased manner and say, deal with what you want to do. Now, there are some folks who are afraid to go to do things like that because they're afraid of retaliation, but I don't think that's the situation here. I know the situation's really been degraded in Crystal City between neighbors and such. Our folks don't want to get involved in any of that row. What they want to see is that we get an environmental study and that they can have some security that they're going to be health-wise okay and their property values aren't going to go down. Like I said, a lot of them have lost everything they've ever worked for except for their home, and they see this as a threat.
Sure.
Part of that environmental study, though, excuse me, they've announced that they have these high technologies. None of us really know what those are.
Exactly.
Let's be honest. But they say they have them. If indeed they do have them, they go through this permitting process. Obviously, this is going to be a fairly, if it passes all of the issues and concerns right there in Crystal City with the lead smelter right next door, with all of the issues St. Louis has, they're going to have to do a lot to pass that. Most people, well, I shouldn't say most people, a lot of people don't think that's going to happen. However, if it does happen, that's going to, I would assume that that's a pretty clean smelter and those technologies are for real. Now, you guys done your research. You don't think that's possible, but if it is possible, how are you going to react to that one?
Well, at that point, if they can get a clean bill of environmental health study, we would come out in public and say that we've changed our position.
And I just want to state this fact: you are the first person that's ever said that.
Well, and the thing is we realize, because we've been in Crystal City over 10 years, we employ direct staff over 30 people, and several hundred, outside of the direct staff of the organization. And we realize that Crystal City has an aging population. It's a beautiful little town, but it's also declining because of population, and we don't want to see anything happen to that. But we also don't want to be living like some of the folks just about 10 miles up the road from Crystal City towards St. Louis either. And our folks, when that all came down and the buyouts came out, I mean, didn't have the resources to just run out and do something like you or I would have if we were retired. They were strapped. They can only have $900 in the bank. That's all they can have. It's really kind of hard to move, even if they buy out your house. And then when they do buy out your house, because you get the payment, then you lose your part of your Social Security. You lose your health coverage. That's real nice.
Yeah. But again, you're staying true to your core, and whatever is best for those people you represent, you advocate for, is where you're going to stand. And at this point, from what you do know, it seems like there will be some type of environmental impact, and which means it can't be good for those people you're representing.
Most likely not. And like I said, we want to give everybody the benefit of a doubt, but we've heard enough from our constituency, so to speak, to know that this is something the board needed to react to and take a position on, and not necessarily, we don't want to get involved in any legal actions or any of that, but we want to be on record saying, until we can clear up all these questions, we need to know. One thing, too, I wanted to just throw in here, we do a lot of public policy work up in Jeff City and what have you. We know a whole lot, and my board members go up there, usually spend a week or two a year up there collectively. And one thing that we know is that when people skirt the sunshine law or attempt to, they don't do it because it's convenient or it's a business practice. People don't hide things unless they have something to hide, okay? And we're not talking about the Easter Bunny here. We're talking about somebody who wants a $1 billion industrial complex in a very compact population area. And that's the question right there. Can it be done?
How long have you lived in Crystal, Aaron?
I will live there 4 years this spring.
So you've seen this whole thing kind of develop around you.
Yeah, kind of pop up out of nowhere.
Like, wait a second, what's going on here? Well, we're out of time, and obviously we can spend a lot more time, and we'll have to have you back as this thing continues to unfold, and it will over a period of months and years or whatever. But thanks for coming in and making your statement clear, and as these hearings come up and you're aware of them, if you'd stay in contact with us, we'll make sure other people know about them as well.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, Craig Henning and Aaron, thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
And again, they're with Disability Resources Association. Joining us today on Straight Talk 1400.